have a guest presenter, Nichole Walker, and she is an instructor in Ellensburg. She has been split between elementary and high school for the last few years. We're taking her all to ourselves in the high school next year.
As we look at Common Core and how that's going to change the way we teach, all content teachers are now teachers of reading and writing. And so as we look at how that's going to guide our instruction so that we can have optimum success of our students, that student learning reaches new heights, that they have sound processes and structures in place so that they can become independent readers and writers. We know that not all of our students come to us ready to learn. We know that not all of them are on grade level. We know that not all of them are ready to write their high school CPA on constitutional issues. You know, I know that. And so when we go to look at what kind of writing processes are we teaching, can we just give them the assignment? Or do we have to teach writing structures and put them in place so that our students have a toolkit, a bag of tricks that they can go to and say, oh, I know how to do this. We're going to do a research paper. Here's what I have to do. Here's how to take notes. Here's how to organize my information. Here's how to synthesize that information into a logical, ordered paper that makes sense, that addresses my topic, my thesis statement. Each paragraph starts with a topic sentence. We've taken them through the writing process. So as we're looking at Common Core, all of us are becoming reading and writing instructors, which means that not all of us are not all of us are reading experts. Not all of us are writing experts. And so we're going to have to turn to each other and say, well, how are we teaching that? What kind of processes are really stuck? I have kids that are not on grade level that are having trouble accessing this information, and they have no organizational strategies in place in order to write this paper. So does this sound familiar to anybody? So as reading and writing teachers, all of us now, even if you're a math teacher, even if you're a CTE teacher, I've been doing Common Core training with the CTE department, and that's been really, really interesting this year. I love the CTE department. I'm married to the woodshop teacher, and really, truly, you're like, how in the world am I supposed to teach reading? And what does writing look like in a CTE classroom? And what are the standards? How do they change from woodshop to literary devices to writing for CPA? How does that work in each content area? And what kind of strategies and processes can we put in place that we can use in woodshop, that we can use in history class, that we can use in our Spanish class, even though Spanish, you guys don't have or Common Core standards yet, I'm sure you will. So I think it's important that we start looking at what kind of structures and processes can we teach our kids so that they can be successful. I'm going to talk about how we access information text, what kind of scaffolds can we put in place in our classrooms, and how can we teach kids to organize that information in a meaningful way and write it to the prompt. Start with the topic sentence and come together. And as all of our teaching strategies go, we model it, we do it together, and then we send them out to do it, and we check in, and we gradually release that responsibility to do to our students. But in the beginning, it looks really structured. And I've used this strategy. We're going to do a process grid. I've used it in kindergarten. I've used it in first grade. I've used it in high school. It works. It looks a little bit different. You can be a little more specific at the high school level. You can ask for citations. You can put it on a process grid. But the point is, we can teach learning structures that can carry kids all the way from elementary to high school. And it's important that they have this big trick so that they can be successful. So I'm a lab instructor, and as I look out, I see lots of people who have taken my class, and thank you. scaffolds in, so we're supporting student learning to more learning. This is I just completed my 20th year of teaching, and I thought I was doing this for 20 years, but I've been teaching for 20 years, and I feel like I know less now than when I started. You know, you start out and you think, you know what, I'm ready for this, but I don't.
We have a couple of people in here who are brand new, some who have just been hired and may not know what GLAD is. I was just wondering if you could get it and just explain it.
GLAD is Guided Language Acquisition and Design. And it's ELL strategies, but more than that, it is just good teaching. It's best practices. And it's used for scaffolding instruction, and it's for instruction that's all in English. You don't have to be bilingual to make text comprehensible for all of our learners. One year in my high school classroom, I had boys from Korea, I had a boy from Cambodia, a boy from Vietnam, kids from China, a kid from Japan, I had a kid, that are all in the same classroom. So there's no way you can provide instruction in every language. It's just not, it just doesn't happen. So learning strategies that you can incorporate to your teaching style, it helps out with learners too. Those kids that are struggling along, they need a little scaffolding, a little help. And for the kids that are accelerated learners, it's a great way for them to start thinking of structures. What can I do to make things easier for my brain? It's all brain-based learning. Teaching kids to code. Our brains are meaning makers, pattern seekers. Pattern seekers, meaning makers. They're looking for patterns. They're looking for ways to store information, pull it out quickly, and apply it. And so the more we can teach kids to structure their study, structure their learning, structure their notes, using color code, using sketches, using pictures, to make repel and make information stick, the better all of our kids will be, not just our lower strugglers or our low language kids, but our accelerated students too. So anyway, this is my 20th year. I know less now than I knew when I started. When I started, I taught 17 years all of the grade school, and I never ever thought I would ever teach a big kid ever. It was scary. I was not smart enough. There's attitude. I can't deal with that. And so when they asked me to go from first grade to the high school, I cried and I was nervous. And what am I going to do? There's no way I can do this. I sing songs and I draw pictures and I have calendar time and circle time. And when I got to the high school, I really found out that it's really not much different. Behavior's not that much different. You have to set expectations. So the 3 expectations in my classroom always are: show respect, make good decisions, solve problems. Say that with me. Show respect, make good decisions, solve problems. Teaching kids when they're studying to touch their fingers, make some kind of hand movement. Touching your fingers is a direct pathway to your brain. So when you're studying vocabulary, adding a hand movement, adding a gesture that touches to bring it to your brain and store it, it's a great way to teach vocabulary. In my classroom, every transition has a signal word. Signal word is a vocabulary word from the beginning of the study opportunity. Today our signal word is adaptation. Say that with me. Adaptations. And our signal is change to survive. So when I say the signal word, I would like all eyes up here. Adaptation. You're going to say adaptation, a change to survive. We can take and teach difficult vocabulary repeatedly throughout the day. Our kids that get it easily need 5 to 7 times they got it. Our low level kids need it over and over and over again. If you could do a word in English, they say it in Spanish. You could say it in Spanish, they say it in English. So I might say change to survive, and they would say adaptation. So every signal word, every time you make a change, instead of saying give me 5, which doesn't reinforce any vocabulary at all, or like your eyes and your ears, doesn't involve increase our vocabulary at all. We can say, when I get a signal, I want to rise up here. Adaptation, adaptation, change to survive. Over and over and over again. We can make little teeny tiny changes in our teaching that will enhance our vocabulary development and so, as we are teaching, I'm going to start with an input chart. Because all writing starts with an input. You have to know what you're writing about. So your input in a literary or a narrative might be brainstorming rather than organizer. But today I'm going to do a direct input. When I do this in my classroom, I pull everybody close. All right, I'll let you guys do that. This is pictorial input. When I'm inputting, I don't ask anybody for what do you think. I don't ask anybody for a suggestion because it's direct instruction. Get ready, get ready, get ready, get ready. I don't want anybody to have any misconception at all. This is what I wanted to know. This is my enduring understanding for my unit. I want everybody to know that animals make adaptations to survive in their environment. That's what I want kids to know when they come out of this unit, that we have to change in order to survive. Okay? So, when I get this in order, I like all eyes up on the chart. Adaptation, adaptation, change to survive. Today we're going to talk about the adaptation of two really interesting animals. The first animal we're going to talk about is the sturgeon. Say that with me. Sturgeon. The sturgeon has a bony snout. Say that with me. Bony snout. Sturgeon live way at the bottom of our rivers and lakes and even oceans. And it's very dark down there. So they have a bony nose so that when they bump into things, they're not injuring themselves. That is an adaptation that the sturgeon uses and is made over time in order to survive in their environment. The sturgeon, because they live in a very dark environment, have their taste buds. Say that with me. Taste buds. On the outside, they're like long tentacles that hang down from the mouth of the sturgeon that taste the ocean floors or go flowing through the bottom of our ocean. And when they find something good to eat, they have this tube-like mouth. Say that with me. A tube-like mouth. And I actually have a picture of that. And so because the tubes are close right here, I would show them this picture of the sturgeon mouth, and it kind of drops down from the bottom of their mouth. It's really ugly, and it hangs down into the siphons. We talk about how they siphon and suck up things like a straw. The sturgeon really doesn't need to see because they live in the dark, murky waters. So they have small eyes. Say that with me. Small eyes. Now, the sturgeon has 5 bony plates. Say that with me. 5 bony plates. And these bony plates protect their body from things falling down on them and from attack of other animals. And the sturgeon is kind of unique for a fish because they have no scales. Say that with me. No scales. The sturgeon can be small or they can be gigantic. A sturgeon can grow to be up to 20 feet long. Say that with me. 20 feet long. And the sturgeon can live to be 75 years old. Say that with me. 75 years old. I would like you just to turn to my elbow partner and talk about what do we know Say that with me.
Beaver.
The beaver is kind of an interesting animal. They have long, sharp teeth. Say that with me.
Long, sharp teeth.
And their teeth, an interesting fact about that, their teeth never stop growing. Say that with me.
Never stop growing.
And that's a really special adaptation that the beaver has because they're continually gnawing trees, wearing down their teeth. So if their teeth didn't grow, they would be toothless wonders, die, starve to death. It would be the ruination of the beaver. So the beaver has these long, sharp teeth. They also have webbed hind feet. Say that with me.
Webbed hind feet.
And because they live both in water and on land, their nose and their ears close underwater. Say that with me. Nose and ears close underwater. And because they're wet all the time, the coats of the beaver are waterproof. So say that with me. Waterproof. And they have this really stinky, musty, oily secretion. And when you think of secretion, you can even think of, ooh, popping a zit. All of you have done that, right? You pop a zit, and that oily, yucky, disgusting stuff squeezes out and secretes, right? All right? So they have this oily secretion that waterproofs their coats. That's called custodium. Say it with me. Custodium. Not only do they have physical adaptations, but they also have behavioral adaptations. Say that with me.
Behavioral adaptations.
Behavioral adaptations are how they act and how they change the way they act over time in order to survive in their environment. Now, the sturgeon, it amazes me. I didn't know a lot about the sturgeon. I only knew that they fish for them behind dams a lot. And I know that my father-in-law was diving. He did maintenance on Rocky Reach Dam. And they were diving down, and he was down on the bottom of the Columbia River. And he was walking backwards. He was weighted, had a weight belt on, and he was walking backwards and fell back and turned around, and there was a sturgeon there. And he said that he just about panicked himself to death there. It was huge. In fact, somebody later caught that sturgeon, and they had to lift it out of the Columbia River with a crane. It was so big. Amazing. So in order for the sturgeon to survive in its environment, it has had to change a little bit over time. So one way that the sturgeon has been able to survive is that they have begun to broadcast spawn. And when you think of broadcast, you think of out broadcasting seeds where you're throwing it out like this. When you think of frog eggs, you see all those little clumps of frog eggs. But the sturgeon, if they do that, guess what happens? Other fish come along and eat it. So in order to survive, the sturgeon has begun to broadcast spawn. Say that with me. Broadcast spawn. And in order to ensure that they have adequate numbers that they reproduce, they lay up to 1 million eggs. Say that with me. 1 million eggs. Another thing that is really interesting and has been a great survival tool for the sturgeon is that they are anadromous. Say that with me. Anadromous. Say it to the ceiling. Anadromous. Say it to the floor. Anadromous. Say it to your neighbor. Anadromous. Say it to your other neighbor. Anadromous. I hope I'm saying it right. I checked it on dictionary.com. Anadromous means that they can go from salt water to fresh water. And Sturgeon like to lay their eggs just like the salmon of freshwater creeks. They can live their whole life in freshwater. They can live in saltwater. They have the ability to go back and forth, which increases their food supply, it increases their habitat, and so it allows them to survive. So imagine, say it again with me, imagine. I'm just going to make myself vanilla, soft and fresh. And another thing that is a behavioral adaptation of the sturgeon is that they are bottom feeders. Say that with me. Bottom feeders. And often we hear about, ooh, they're a bottom feeder. And we'll talk when we get to diet how that could be kind of thought of as a negative annotation. And it might be used as a negative term when we talk about bottom feeders. When we go over to the beaver, like the sturgeon, the beaver has also made behavioral adaptations in order to survive in their environment. So behavioral adaptation of the beaver is that they mate. Say that with me. Mate or life. Another adaptation for the beaver is that they are territorial. Say that with me. Territorial. They protect where they live. They protect their lodges, they protect their dams, they protect their babies, they protect their area. Not only do they not want humans there, they don't want dogs there, they don't want bears there, they don't want other beavers there really either. Okay, so they're territorial. We have a beaver dam at our property on the Spokane River, and my boys are forever trying to catch that beaver. Never happens, but they did corner the beaver, and that tail started slapping, and they started growling and hissing at my kids. I was amazed at how aggressive a beaver can be. So watch out.
I blame it on the kids.
What's that? What's that?
She blames it on the kids.
Oh, I do too. Another behavioral adaptation of the beaver is that the male and the female care for their young. So they have constant supervision. Think of our kids. If there's only one parent, it gets a little bit hard to watch after them and make all the decisions and prepare all their meals and do all of their laundry. And lots of people have to do it, and it can be done. But the beaver, both parents, male and female, care for their young. The baby beaver can swim after 24 hours, and just like we talked about before, they slap their tail to warn everybody of danger. Dive, go to your lodge, go to your I'm going to stop right here for a second and talk about direct input. As we're teaching in our classrooms, direct input, that direct instruction, and I always thought of reading mastery. As a reading specialist for years, I'm like, oh my gosh, direct instruction. This is an M. An M says, get ready, get ready. This is an A. An A says add. Get ready, add. Get ready, add. When my finger slides into the word, you're going to blend the sounds together, but not till my fingers there. Get ready, say it quick, That was my experience with direct instruction. You got to be kidding me. We're going to do direct instruction. Yeah, I've done that before. I'm a trained reading mastery person. I have done DISSTAR. I have done reading mastery. I can do that. I can read the red print and follow the script. But that was my exposure to direct instruction. But really, when we're inputting information, we want that information to be accessible by all our kids. We want them to repeat what we're saying. We want them them to see it created in front of them. One of the theories or behind GLAD is that it's not created in front of the kids, it's wallpaper. They can buy lots and lots of great charts, posters, but how often do we actually go to those, refer to those, and how often do our kids use them? So in my class of low learners, I had pull-out GLAD class at Mount Stewart, which is not the way to do it. This should be embedded in your classrooms, teaching your science kids and your social studies units, and you should not pull kids out of classroom instruction. I think we should pull the newcomers and use survival skills, push them into the classroom, help support their learning. Because every time we pull them in the classroom, they're missing this. They're missing anadromus, they're missing adaptations, they're missing habitats, they're missing ecosystems, they're missing all of that core vocabulary that's going to be very important for them in the future. So when we send kids out of the classroom, we really need to think, is this in the best interest of the kid? If their access to the information is greatly impacted and they need some one-on-one support in order to be successful in class, that's what we do. If they're a kid that with a few adaptations to our teaching, changing to survive in our classrooms, if we can change the way we teach, add some foundations and some scaffolding to build their comprehension in the classroom, aren't they better out there? Writing in my class when I first started, the boy is big. He is fast. Okay? Writing in my classroom at the end of that first year was the little boy who wrote random scribbles up and down. I don't know why. All one word. You couldn't even tell letters most of it. He was like, Mrs. Walker, where is that chart at? And I'm like, which one? You know, the here, there chant. I'm like, it's right there. You know it from a long time ago. I'm like, why? And he goes, you know, we highlighted in green and I drew on it. And I'm like, no, I don't know. I want to write microscopic organisms and I don't know how to spell it. Can you find me that chart? Sure. So it empowers them to use this incredible vocabulary, where before they were limited to the words they knew how to spell. But if our walls are dripping, if they are exposed to high-level content vocabulary, if it's just part of their day, it's what we do. If we're chanting, animals adapt and change in order to survive and APT, if they're talking about adaptations, if they're talking about the sturgeon siphoning its food through its toothless mouth, if they're chanting that, it's just part of what we do. If they're talking about, I'm a mammal with sharp teeth, I swim fast with my lip feet, my tail serves as my alarm, I stop to signal time. If it's just part of what we do every day, we chant it, we sing it, we write it, that's their vocabulary, that's their writing habits. Okay, so we need to input high-level content. We need to put watering down the vocabulary, but we need to make it accessible. So I would go through and I would input information about behavioral adaptations, physical adaptations, their diet, their habitat, their interesting facts. I would add picture support about their lodges and what does their data look like. I would talk about the diet of the beaver. The beaver cuts down trees, but do you think they eat all of that wood? No. They use a cambium. See that with me? Cambium. Cambium is that little layer underneath the bark, that delicate layer. It's full of rich nutrients that the beaver thrives on. So they have to cut down a lot of trees in order to get enough food to survive. So we talk about diet. We've already talked about in our classroom about how endangered animals fit in and what is it affecting their habitat. And globally, to in the narrower field as we go. So I'll input all of this information. You guys just happen to be lucky that this is not wet. It's not in a box, and I still have a few things left. So, I speed taught a unit for my practicum student so that they could see all the things that we were looking at. And this was, a lot of it was hers, but that works. So as we inputted information into our chart, we talked about their diet, how the sturgeon is too light now to go and siphon up dead and decaying crustaceans. We talked about mussels and crabs and lobsters and what they would eat off the bottom of the ocean. We talked about the Imaginus. We talked about what is an estuary. They like to hang out. Their habitat is in fresh water as well as and they live in bays and estuaries, that piece of water that's in between salt water and fresh water. We talk about what is estuaries and adaptations. We talk about all the adaptations, interesting facts. The beaver is actually a rodent, and it's the largest rodent in the world. Okay. The beaver dams cause flooding of crops and roads and add habitat for other animals. So we go through and we input all of our information. Once our information is inputted, then when we do it, right? So I've taught 2 animals that make adaptations to survive. Then I've got expert reading groups because as we become teachers of reading and writing in all of our classroom, our kids need ways to strategies to use in reading. And one strategy that we like to do is multiple. We read and reread for fluency. We read and reread for content. We make sketches for our brain and we highlight important information. From the important information, then we'll transfer that information to a mind map. Once we've done input all of our expert groups, so in my class we did a pictorial input chart or a comparative input chart actually of sturgeon and beaver. We taught expert groups of the great blue-haired rattlesnake, the coyote, and the bat. And when we're doing expert reading groups, we're adding pictures for scaffolds. Kids can pass around the pictures, we can point it out, adding extra context and extra support for our students so they understand the content. Even if they're a low language speaker, they can see what you're talking about in the pictures. And you're going to ask them when you printed out the picture to go back and repeat it in the text. Then you're going to show them the picture and you're going to repeat it in the text again. So they're making those connections between the printed word, the pictorial support, and the organization of reading and writing. Okay?
What's the expert reading room?
I'm going to show you that right now. Abby, can we do it on the screen? I think I'll go through it easier. Yeah. In my class, we always sit in teams. Yeah.
When you were doing your input, were you just have the kids up front and they were just getting auditory, visual, but they weren't physically writing their notes?
They're not physically writing their notes. I'm doing visual and auditory input first. We're going to transfer all of that information to a mind map, all that mind map to the process grid.
But this is still on the wall.
Yes, absolutely. I would take then cards with words to review it the next day. I would take off the pictures. I would have written words that are color-coded for extra support for our low language kids. And I would go through and I'd review the map. And when I get to the part that says, the bald eagle lives in North America, right? Man is the bald eagle's enemy because of habitat destruction, pollutants, and so when they hear pollution, they would come up and put it on the chart. Then I had, what did I put? Oh, I can't remember. I think I asked them like, what endangered species do you like best? Or I don't know, it was something silly. But anyway, they went and wrote and stuck it on the chart. But they go through, everything is color-coded to add support for low language kids, so when they hear it, and when I'm done reviewing the chart, if I see that my lowest student has a word protects, didn't put it up on the chart, I would say, who still has a word in their hand? All right, I'm gonna review again. Let's go ahead and look at the word that you have. Get your mouth ready to start that word. You can go break it down to the phonemic point, right? Get ready, get your mouth ready to start. Let's put that in chunks. Pro. Say it with me. Pro. Get your mouth ready to do the second one. X. Let's clap the syllables in that. I'm going to review this again. When you hear the word, what is it? Protects. When you hear the word protects, I'd like you to approach on the chart. That way we can start individualizing instruction for our students, right? Within the whole group.
But no graphic order actually, but they're probably out loud.
We'll do that during this. Because we're going to start out whole. I do, we do, you do, right? So as we're going to start out, I would pull up, my class sits in teams, I would pull them up, and we would, all ones from your team, please come forward. All the ones would come up and they would sit at my reading table. Today, we're going to do an expert reading group on that. So they would be at my reading table and they would all be sitting there, they would all have their own copy, they would all be making their own sketches, and we would do this together. And I would put up, show them a picture. So today, we're going to be reading about that. And I would like, we're going to start out with the physical adaptations. Have we heard that before? Can they read it now? We've already done it, right? So we would be ready, physical adaptations. Ready? Everybody read. Bats have furry bodies, wings, and flexible skin. Their size varies depending on the species. Their face and head can resemble a small dog or bear. The bat has hands on its wings, which are long and narrow. They have 5 fingers. Their legs are weak and are not made for walking. Bats come in a variety of colors. For example, black, brown, gray, red, or yellow. Run it for 5 minutes. Lots of times I won't even have them read the papers. Then we're going to go line by line. Let's go ahead and try this again. We'll go read with me, and if you see something that's important, I want you to do that. We'll highlight it.
Can you speak up?
Oh, sure. So we're going to read it again line by line. Are you ready? Bats have furry bodies, wings, and flexible skin. What's important in that sentence? And then kids would give me feedback. Oh, it's important that they have furry bodies, wings, and flexible skin, right? So let's go ahead and make a sketch for our brains. Okay? So they have, here's my bat, are you ready? So they have furry bodies and flexible wings. What does flexible mean? They can bend, right? So I would go through and I would say that it bends. There are let's go ahead and read. Their size varies depending on the species. We need to highlight anything? Maybe size varies. And what does varies mean? Right? So we're going to have to go in and talk about vocabulary. Size varies. So we can draw a thing and go from small to big, right? It's a sketch for our brain. We are not artists. This isn't art class. This is a sketch for our brain. That's how we're going to remember the information. Read with me. Their face and head can resemble a small dog or bear. And I'm going to show you a picture of that. First of all, what does resembles mean? Resembles looks like, right? So we have the nose and the sharp teeth and the pointy ears. Do you see how it might look like a dog or a bear? So I'm going to lead them through their guided. We're going to be making sketches for our brain to remember the information. Okay? So what is important in their face and head resemble a dog or a bear? Do we want to highlight anything? If not, we'll keep reading. The bat has hands on its wings, which are long and narrow. What's important information on that? Hands on wings. Okay, I'm going to show you a picture of that. It's going to be kind of hard to see here, I think. Let me show you it. This might be easier to see. So you can see it has a long arm and then all of these long, skinny fingers, and actually even a thumb. So they have wings on their, or hands on their wings. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to draw a hand. Because really, what am I doing? Oh, okay. We're making a sketch for our brain. It's for nobody else but you. What does that remind you of? What does it look like? It only matters to you. Can you recall the information or not? Okay, they have 5 fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And their legs are weak and not made for walking. So I would probably do something like this. Okay, because it's only a sketch for my brain. Okay? So as we go through, we read, we highlight information. First we read for fluency, then we go back and we read for information. We highlight important details and make a sketch for our brains. Horizontal goes back to non-linguistic representation being key to content, vocabulary, and concepts. How do we remember concepts? Add some non-linguistic representation. Make a sketch for your brain. Attach a picture to it. Color code it. Do something that makes your brain go back and remember it. Yeah?
I'm thinking of the two ends of the spectrum
Sure.
in the classroom, where you may have a kid that's super low, that needs to be awesome for,
Absolutely.
and the general kids too. And then I'm thinking, but I also have that kid in the classroom that's so super high that they could have read that paragraph and read 15 more paragraphs by the time you're finished and they're twiddling their thumb. What would you do with that kid? Would you set them aside and have them do something?
Well, when we're doing this, remember we're going to teach the process. So the first unit that you do, you're going to have them sit through it with you because really, truly, we're trying to embed process. This might be really easy text for them, but when they get to AP Chemistry, it's not. So what are we teaching? We're teaching structure. We're going to teach them how to pinpoint important information in a nonfiction text. We're going to teach them to pull out that information, make a sketch for their brain. How do I remember it? We're going to make a non-linguistic representation of it. We're going to transfer all of that information to a mind map, and then we're going to put it into a process grid to write from. So the process is what's important. So they need to learn the process. If they're college-bound, top 10%, national merit scholar, those kids have learning strategies firm and in place in order for them to be successful. We're going to give them one more trick to add to their bag of tricks so that they can be successful as they go through school. Yes, this is easy, but they are going to meet challenges and they need to have strategies in place in order to go and move on beyond those.
And once they've gotten that process, then you probably would have lesson planned to set them
Right, so
aside
then I would say
at a higher level.
another animal that has made adaptations for survival is this. I would like you to go out and research, fill out your mind map, and get ready to teach that animal to the rest of the class. Okay? Yeah.
Nichole, you know I had kind of a problem with this.
Didn't we talk about this earlier?
For the last few years.
Yeah, okay. Just making sure.
Anyway, I don't agree that you can enrich enough for those kids. Yeah, I can have them teach, and I do that, and I've gone back and forth. But those kids really are not good, because if they have the strategies, they need more content, yet they do need a teacher still to guide them, to the next level of research paper writing, or to discuss the content. And it's just a frustration for me to hit all of those levels, because I can teach to the middle, and that's what we're really taught to do. And I can do this, but those higher level kids don't get it, and only about half of them really want to, and they figure out if you're not demanding it of them, that they don't do it. They have other things to do, sports.
Absolutely. So you're thinking that this maybe isn't a strategy that you would
No,
use?
I'm just working in my mind how to do it so I can give those kids what they want. And I'm having trouble, and I've tried it, the last couple of years, I'm having trouble feeling like that top 10 or 15% for that video. I'm just sitting in the middle of the bell-shaped curve,
Right.
and then some of it. But sometimes I'm not even hitting the middle. I think I'm doing things that are more maybe, and I'm not very good at that. So that's what I have to get better, but then I feel like anything. Go on and on.
Well, that spectrum is really hard to address, and when we get to the high school level and you have a kid reading at the 4th grade level in your U.S. history class, and you have a kid who's a top 10% kid who has taken all AP classes and is running START and is taking Cornerstone, and they're ready to graduate with their 2-year degree when they graduate from high school, those kids are a challenge. But you're going to say to them, you know what, I know that this is not going to push you to where you need to be, but I want you to learn a learning structure, because eventually you're going to come across something that's difficult for you. It might not be this, but you need to have structures in place. I'm going to quickly show this to you, and you know what? Everybody else, when we get done with this, is going to write a multi-paragraph essay discussing the constitutional issue behind, or the balance of the greater good and the Constitution for, freedom of speech and school, or uniforms, or whatever it happens to be. So you're going to show them this structure. You may choose to use it or not use it, but this is a structure that you may use. I want you to know it. Do you have to use it this time? No. But the rest of the class are going to meet the same writing expectations that you're going to meet. If you want to do it in a different way, that's great. You're going to go to the library, you're going to research, and you might organize your information different. But those kids that need this structure are going to walk through it with me. I don't know. Yeah.
Isn't another adjustment you can do too? I mean, part of it is that structure and process, but part of it is also the difficulty of the text.
Sure.
So for those expert groups, if you had a more difficult text for those groups, of all your ones, for those higher level readers, and then had a more complex text.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, they're going to choose a more complex issue than their students who are strugglers in the classroom. And as we adapt, but I think initially, while you're teaching process, because it's important to teach a process that kids can do, right? So as we're going through and we're adding stuff, we're going to take everything from the backed physical adaptations, we're going to add it to a mind map, because we're going to teach kids to use graphic organizers. We're going to transfer things from the mind map to the process grid. And you're saying, isn't that copying? Yeah. We're going to take information that we read here, we're going to put it on a graphic organizer, we're going to put it on the process grid, and then we're going to walk the process grid. We're going to teach kids to make simple and complex sentences that match and write to a topic sentence or your thesis statement. It could be, I start with a paragraph and work to multi-paragraph. By the end of 3rd grade, in a GLAD classroom, you're writing multi-paragraph essays. We might write the introductory paragraph together as a group. Some students will work as in a group to come up with the body paragraphs together. Some students will work from the process grid and write their own. Depends on where they're at. Go ahead and talk amongst your group about how could you use this in your classroom and where you're still struggling. So go ahead and turn and talk to your neighbors really quick about that, and then we'll move on. When I give this ignore, can I have your eyes up here? Adaptation. Adaptation, a change to survive. All right, I knew have great discussions
You do
about,
help kids at the end.
absolutely, every time.
Well, when we see that same struggle, I mean, at elementary, you know, we have kids come to us as a first grade teacher that don't know their letters and then kids that read at a fourth grade level.
Absolutely.
So that's why, you know, short mini lessons
And I think that's important that you brought up short mini lessons. Common Core is saying that we don't have to take every piece of writing that we turn in, doesn't need to be a big research paper. They're saying break it into chunks, teach the strategies, teach kids how to access that information, teach them how to think critically, and make judgment calls on it, right? Yeah.
Well, something that we talked about, what I've noticed when the kids come to the library, even the highest level of kids, they do not know how to extract what is important in order to cite anything in their paper, whether it's argument or it's information. And your steps there are perfect model for them. Put up something like a Supreme Court case that they're trying to use as evidence, and hold them, see, this is what I want to put in my paper. This is what I want to pull out of here. And maybe in the box, the drawing isn't as important, but some notes or why I'm going to use this, because they come in and they print like crazy, and they know they want to use it, but then they don't always pick the best pieces to support what they're trying to say, or to use as evidence if it's an argument, or to cite information. I think it would work really well even for the kids that think they know how to do everything, because they're going to come across text that they can't decipher well.
You know, I'm thinking of analysis. What is that compared to commentary? Or when we talk about arguments, we talk about warrants. That's not the hardest thing to teach. Just because you say, here's a fact that supports my claim, doesn't say it does, it doesn't say that I accept it. So there's something missing there. It's like we talked about yesterday. So you show them all of the literary devices, but then they don't say, oh, I can find that, but then the so what is not here. So I can see you doing the same thing with the so what part. So what if it's, because this is process and this is thinking to me. So they all get it, they go off into it. And the Common Core says we need to look at text complexity. And our students need to be reading more and more complex text, but they can't all start there. Those who are there, there you go.
Teaching kids how to decipher that difficult text is really hard. Teaching kids to say, oh, well, I don't know that word, oh, well, so what? You know, I have electronic dictionaries on my table. My kids have to look up a lot. My kids use Google Image a lot to get a pictorial picture of what does that really look like and what do they really mean. Like Kathy said, they come to my class. I have to write my CBA, Mrs. Walker. Like, what are you writing about? Well, I don't really know, but I'm going to write about a constitutional issue and the greater good. I'm like, all right, Kathy. I said, it's kind of like a balance scale. You can picture a balance scale. I bring one out. What does it look like? So if you live in Arizona and they are targeting you because you're brown, they're stopping you and having you show documentation, and this person's from Sweden and white, doesn't have their documentation, but they pull you over because you're brown. That's racial profiling. Is that for the greater good? Is it okay? Make a judgment call. What do you think? You know, and getting kids to really think critically about those things. That isn't a constitutional issue, is that right?
Well, yeah. It's a function of a good citizen.
But sometimes we have to start small. Sometimes we have to model. How do you pull out and extract information? How do we take notes? Notice that we don't take long, elaborate sentences. We're going to transfer everything in bulleted information because we don't want to promote plagiarism. We're going to take notes in short, concise words or phrases. If we want to add a quote, when we're doing a constitutional issue, if this were my son when he did his CBA for freshmen, they had to choose a world, what was it? They had to,
It was a conflict.
a historical conflict or a world conflict. They had to come up with historical reasons, economic process grid. Chance, when you're reading your textbook, everything you enter from your textbook, all the information is going to be in blue. Why? So when we do your citations, we know that when we get to the blue information, it comes from your textbook. Everything you did from history.com is going to be in green. Why? So when we do your internal citation, put your page number down on your process grid, we know when you input the green information into your paper, that where is it coming from? History.com. When we do the red information, where is it coming from? It's coming from those books that Mr. Tucker left in front of my door that I never thought I would use in 100 years, but guess what? They're good. Right? So you pull them out and they use it and they he color coded its information. He could have put the internal citation with the name. We color coded it and we knew that everything inputted in red was from that book. Right? So we're teaching citation, we're teaching documentation, we're teaching kids when they do their work cited, it's all right there. We're teaching them to put the page understand. So that when we do our internal citations, guess what? It's easy. I had a column for quotes because quotes are nice in a paper, right? So quotes, color that they came from, page number they came from, person they came from, it's all in the process grid. Now when we write, yeah.
I have a question about the grid.
I haven't got it out there yet, yeah.
Oh, you have
No,
not.
no, ask it.
Well, I'll make that.
No, ask it and we'll just walk through it,
Okay.
yeah.
As you're getting to more complicated than the sturgeon beaver,
Sure.
are
This is
those outside pieces filled in by the instructor to support the student to know what they're looking for, or are they
these pieces here
on the outsides of your
on the outside. So
your category?
for me, I told them this is the information you're looking for. If you're doing research on your own, what is your thesis statement? What do we want to know when we read your paper? That's going to guide the important information that you extract from a text. If they are looking for the same information on topics as they go through, guess what? Their paper's more concise, right? Instead of abstract, random, whatever, they're writing in a big circle and you have no idea where they're going with their paper. If they're reading about a conflict and we've decided that we want to know location, we want to know people involved, we want to know the outcome, we want to know what historical causes were into it, and how did it affect the economy of that, or how did the economy affect that battle, or the outcome that happened. So we would be looking for that content on each battle, right? So when we go to write our paper, we can start with a topic sentence like, there were many battles that led to the outcome of the Civil War. These affected the colonies both historically and economically. However, it's going to be, so you come up with your thesis for your topic, and then for your paper, and then each paragraph's going to have a topic sentence, right? The battle it's a pivotal battle in the Civil War because, and then you're going to walk your process through. Why was it? Economically, this battle did this. Leading up to this, there were many historical causes that led to this battle, right? In the outcome, there were so many deaths, but the victor of this battle was whoever, and it led to a stronger army, which then led to the defeat of the British. However, we're going to do the process where it guides our writing. So it can be simplistic with our animals that adapt to their environment. It can be complex as we go to the high school or middle school level or 5th grade level. As we go through and we teach kids to say, what is your enduring understanding? What do you want us to come out of this war knowing, or this paper knowing? What topics do we need to cover? And how can we be concise in our writing so your paper flows, right? Does it look right? Does it sound right? Does it make sense? guess what? We cross-check our writing just like we cross-check our reading. Right? And I'm forever doing, does it look right? Does it sound right? Does it make sense to it? Flow. Right? Just like teaching cafe, right, Joanna? Right? Did you read it to your neighbor? Did you read it out loud to yourself? Then read it to me. Follow the checklist. So I'm going to just say, we're going to leave this, and can this come up?
Yeah.
So because we taught this unit really fast, just to model strategy to my practical students, I would have done, in order to survive in their habitats, animals have made many adaptations. We would go through, read our topic sentence, highlight important information so kids know what we're writing to. Right? There's nothing more maddening than you give the kids a prompt, and guess what? They don't address the prompt. Right? What happens when they send that piece of writing to the scores? Tara, what happens if they don't address the point?
That's very few kids that don't address it in some way. That's when they're just looking for writing. So not very many that are on school.
But some of them, right.
So not very, but not very many.
Not very many. They're getting really good about pinpointing what are they asking.
Yeah, I mean, remember the prompt for the state, the prompt is just to get kids to write.
Right.
So that's what they'll score most everything.
Perfect.
In science, it was 20 to 30%, but it was anything from
20 to 30% are not doing. Well, I know that in mine, I always ask, what is the prompt asking me to do? Circle it. How many? It might be a reading prompt where they have to write a short answer response, right? In two ways that the sturgeon and the beaver have made adaptations to survive in their environment, right? How many do they have to do? 2. If they don't go 2, guess what? They lose points, right? So addressing the prompt specifically, starting with the topic sentence when you're writing. So with my class, this was filled in, I apologize, I don't think I brought my process ready. We take all of the information that we input in this chart. We then take this information, and you know what? It's a direct copy. I'm going to take away the color code. Why are we going to take away the color code? Because we are gradually reducing responsibility. We're gradually taking away scaffolds. We've added pictorial, we've added read with, we've added make a sketch for our brain. We've added all of the color coding for the students, and we're going to gradually start stepping that back. Why? Because we want independent learners. Right? So this is going to be the sturgeon. What physical adaptations does the sturgeon have? They're all my teams are there. I'll say, put your heads together and think about the physical adaptations. If we're doing expert groups, I'll say, that experts, take out your tan piece of paper, right? And so there's one expert in each group. That experts, take out your mind map and teach your class, your group about physical adaptations and behavioral adaptations to your group. 2 minutes, go. Right? And then I take out my numbered heads because Spencer Kagan says we've got to have equity in the classroom, right? We can't always call on a smart kid, and everybody has to know the answer. If they don't know it, put your heads back together. Make sure everybody knows what's your team's response. If they still don't get it, great. Put your heads back together. Orange group will then come back to you and ask you to interact. Right? Orange group number 2. What's a physical adaptation for the beaver? So you don't have an orange team. I'm going to ask all of you to put your heads back together. I want to make sure that number 2 is going to answer that question because we don't want learning helplessness. Right? Neurological press. If we let them off the hook, all I have to do is cry a little bit, right? And I don't have to answer anything, right? Don't let them learn to be helpless. You are responsible. Your group is your support, your scaffold. Put your heads together. I'll be right back. Number 2, you're on, right? don't let them off the hook. Don't let them learn that they can just avoid it and go on, right? We don't allow that. They call it the neurological press. Press that information, press that information, press that information, no one right? Who was in my first scary demo? Was anybody here for the first time I did it? Orange team, number 2. Well, actually, when I did my very first blood health demo for my certification with the lady from California. Orange team. Huh?
Was that when you were sick?
Yeah. Were you there? Oh yeah, it was terrible. Orange team number 2, put your heads together, honey. What's your team's response? She wouldn't do it. I'm going to be back to you, orange team number 2. Come back. What's your response? Still won't do it. Put your heads together. Orange team number 2. You have to do it, right? You come back. She still won't do it. Everybody, orange team, stand together. I need to hear number 2's voice, but let's give your response together, right? I go back through next prompt. Orange team number 2, and everybody goes. Orange team number 2, what is your sentence for the word adaptation? She stands right up and does it, and the whole teacher gallery, the 20 teachers in the back of the room go, we didn't let her off the hook, and that's important, right? So we're going to use numbered spoons, we're going to fill out our charts, our experts for each of the expert groups are going to teach their team. They learn the most when they're teaching somebody else.
That process right there, helping number 2s can see transforms the life of a Mandarin speaking student in my classroom because she had to speak and they had to turn things around.
It is, because you know what? It's not their response, and it is. They have a voice, but you know what? It's not their own. If it's a crappy idea, it's their team's crappy idea. It's not theirs, right? Well, this is a really bad idea, but it's my team's, and they said, you know, that pressure is on. So as we go through, we're going to start with the topic section. We're going to highlight important information. You can't see it on this one. Animals adapt to survive in their habitats. Each team has to go and walk the process grid. My model walk is the process grid. And I'm just going to go here and say, the great blue heron has a unique physical adaptation. They have a long yellow bill that they use to stab their prey. Can you do that again? I just want to see it. Right? So that's on our process grid. So we said the great blue heron has an interesting physical adaptation. They have a long yellow bill that they use to stab their prey and eat it whole. So we're going to teach them to walk the process grid, combine information. So the rattlesnake, let's see. Okay, so the rattlesnake can live to be 25 years old. They're born without a rattle, but every time they shed their skin, another rattle forms. Okay, so we can teach them to go and combine information. The rattlesnake's habitat is anywhere where there's a great supply of small rodents. They live under rocks, brush, grasslands, streams, and forest floors. Okay, we're gonna teach them to combine information. We can say the coyote and the rattlesnake share many of the same habitats. So we can combine information from one side to the next. If we're doing this at a high school level, all of our information is color-coded according to our source. Okay? And you might say, according to da-da-da-da-da-da-da, right? The rattlesnake has a venomous bite that can paralyze a man and whatever, you know? So you can actually ask them to cite the source within their sentence structure. So here's my little kiddos. I go through and I'll say, groups, you need to come to consensus on a sentence from the process grid. They go through, they come up with a sentence, they tell it to me. I'm like, okay, here you go. Here's your color marker from your team. Write it, put it up on the chart. They put it up in random order. So everything's in random order, and then we go through and we say, using an editing checklist. I read my paper out loud. Let's try it. Animals adapt to thrive in their habitats. And then nothing's combined, nothing goes together. There's short sentences. There's some of the stuff that's the same. And so then we go through and we say, oh, wow, how did that go for us? Did it make sense? Did it sound right? What can we do to improve this? Let's go back through and let's group like things. So we go through and we group things about the sturgeon, and then we group things about the beaver, right? And then we can go back through when we read again. Okay, did it make sense? Was it clear? Did it have a beginning and an end? Did it match our prompt? We go back through and we'll say, you know, when I was reading this, we could have combined it. We could start with a transition. So sturgeon, we use editing marks, are anadromous. They can go in both freshwater and saltwater. Anything in black we've done together. They, because they use sturgeon again, I said we need to say sturgeon, 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 sturgeon. They cycling decaying fish and crustaceans through their tube-like mouth from the bottoms of rivers, lakes, and oceans. In addition, because in third grade we're working on transitions, in addition, they lay 1 million eggs to increase their population. We're editing, we're adding transitions, we're doing editing marks, we're revising her content for flow. So we walk them through how to come up with how to find important information in the text, put it on a mind map, transfer it to a process grid, walk the process grid to combine information, put it into written form using a writing checklist for the revise our writing, and walk it through the writing process. This, yes, we're doing boldly. However, we are not going to continue doing this every single unit all together. There might be a group of kids that need, when you send everybody else out to do, that you'll say, great, Fred, Johnny, Rita, whoever, come on up. We're going to walk through this together while everybody else is doing it independently. Because really, truly, we're releasing that information, we're releasing that, that responsibility. We don't want to continually walk them through this every single time, because then we're teaching learned helplessness again. It's your responsibility. I've given you the tools. Show me you know how to do it. So hopefully you will be able to see how you can apply a structure in your classroom. It might not be a structure for everybody, but if you're working on making sure that kids can write an expository text, write to a prompt, be concise, to the point, and have a cohesive paper, this might be one strategy that you use in the classroom. So, maybe think about 3 points you might want to remember, something that squares with your information, and if there's something that's really rolling around with you that just doesn't work for you, you don't understand it, if there's something rolling around for you that you want clarified,